Welcome back to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald, along with my co-host, Matt McButter. Today's host is the perfect guest for this podcast. She's someone who was doing something, happily enough, or so it seemed, until something happened that changed everything, and she found her purpose in life. That is the big tickle, the one everyone should be trying to find. Allow me to explain. Our guest, Jane Hogan, spent the first 30 years of her career as a design engineer, but a case of rheumatoid arthritis became crippling to the point of debilitation. Doctors couldn't help her. Pain medication couldn't help her. She was a wreck, but using her engineer's mind, she set out to find out how to cure herself, and the discovery of a natural solution to her ailments changed everything. She ditched the engineering, or at least the primary engineering career, and began her next phase as a functional medicine certified health coach, a yoga teacher, and a wellness educator. You might know her as the wellness engineer, a role in which she blends science and ancient spiritual practices to help people release chronic pain using the mind, body, and breath so they can become empowered creators of their own health. She is the host of the Wellness by Design podcast and is a frequent guest on various media platforms on the subject of chronic pain. What I'm most impressed by is in 2022, she hosted an online summit, Becoming Pain-Free, Healing the Root Causes of Chronic Pain, which had 36,000 participants. And while we don't normally count numbers here on How to Tickle Yourself, helping even one person find a way out of chronic pain is the work of a saint. Helping thousands means she's doing work at the right hand of God. Welcome to the show, Jane. It's great to have you.
Oh my goodness, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Duff. I'm so happy to be here.
At the present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion, right here, right now, right here, right now, whoa, right here, right now.
So, I gave a brief intro there, but I watch you on Instagram and I see you and your husband doing things like running in winter conditions, training for a half marathon, or jumping in frigid water somewhere in the Bay of Fundy or something like that. So you don't look like you're in pain at all. Tell us, if you can, how you became pain-free.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I am not in pain now, but I was in a lot of pain. You know what? Now that I'm thinking of the word tickled, I feel like I got tickled by pain. It didn't feel like a tickle at the time, but it forced me to really reevaluate my life on so many levels. I mean, I started with just like, how do I get out of this pain? But then I realized that there was a whole lot more going on, that I really needed to examine my whole life and how my thinking, who I was, or how I thought of myself. And so through all of that, gradually, I began to release pain. So it started with food, changing my food. And I kind of considered myself a healthy eater, but when I cut out gluten, dairy, and sugar in, cold turkey, 5 days later, I had a big reduction in pain. So I was like, okay, food's the answer. And I started looking a lot more into like the autoimmune paleo protocol and other things with food. And then I discovered functional medicine and the power of lifestyle as well. So, focusing on getting sleep and having these stress reduction practices, looking at my relationships, what relationships were serving me and what weren't serving me. And I looked at movement, making sure I was pretty active anyway, but well, I wasn't active when I was in pain because all I could do was sit around on the couch. But yeah, so I kind of started pulling all of this lifestyle stuff together, decided then I wanted to learn more about functional medicine. So in my part-time, like off on the side while I was still working as an engineer and working through all these lifestyle changes, I did the training to be a functional medicine certified health coach, not really knowing if I was going to be a coach or not, but just wanting to learn more. And then every single month we had a component on mind body medicine. And I was like, oh, this was really good. This was like really digging into the stuff that I was interested in for a long time. I was always interested in personal development. And I never really tied personal development with health, but it's totally tied together. And also spirituality, the spiritual side of ourselves. It's all like mind, body, spirit. It really does. We're not separate. It's all one. And then I love the whole quantum physics too. Everything's energy. That really kind of blew my mind to hear we're nothing but energy. But it's interesting when you pull it all together, and then you can initiate healing, create an environment in which your body can heal.
Can we? That's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah. Okay. What part do you
want? It's like a whole
unpack?
podcast worth of. I want to just go back to the food and start with the food because,
Okay.
I mean, I love food. I love sugar. I wouldn't say I even know what gluten is or what it's in, but I feel like I love gluten.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably love all of the bad stuff, but I mean, let's start there.
I love all that stuff too. When I worked in an engineering office and we had tea time twice a day, and the wife of the owner loved to bake. And so we always had all these baked things. And it was a big joke that I ate more of that stuff than anybody else. I just loved it. I loved cookies. I loved cakes. I loved all that stuff. So for me to kind of be gone gluten-free, sugar-free, all of that now is kind of amazing. I've just found substitutes. So I still love all that stuff. So, I mean, sugar, we think of it as a natural food, but it's very inflammatory. So if anyone's got inflammation in their body, it's like, that's a great place to start. Gluten. So if you don't know what it is, it's a protein that is found in wheat and other grains, but that's the most common one. So, cereals, most of us were eating gluten, 3 times a day. You have some toast for breakfast and you have sandwich for lunch and then pasta or something like that for supper. Then you have dessert on top of it. So we're getting a lot of gluten. And what I learned is that it opens up the tight junctions in our small intestine. So the small intestine is only one layer thick, and only the right things are supposed to kind of get through into our bloodstream. And gluten causes these junctions to open up. And you may have heard the term leaky gut. It's kind of fairly common now. Well, maybe it seems common to me in my space, but so the gut gets leaky. So it's kind of like cheesecloth, and we get holes in it. And then proteins come through that should never get through, like partially digested food, stuff that the bacteria that's chewing up our food releases, dead bacteria that leaks through, and then the immune system's right on the other side, and so it mounts an inflammatory response. And that's what that's where the inflammation can show up anywhere on your body. That is just kind of probably dictated a little bit by your genes, your genetic makeup, but really you can have like skin, psoriasis is a gut, it's related to gut health. Most inflammatory conditions have a gut health component. So that's why those little cells, they turn over every 3 to 5 days, which is why I had so quickly noticed a difference.
So
wow.
Are you saying gluten, for instance, it's bad for everybody? I mean, even if you don't, I know that there are people that are celiacs, and I know a little bit about that stuff. Those people shouldn't be having any gluten, clearly. It's almost like an allergy to it. But I mean, should I not be having gluten? Should everybody cut out gluten? Is gluten bad for everybody?
Well, here's what I learned in my training, that gluten is inflammatory for everyone. Some people can manage it a little bit better than others. So it's kind of like if you think of all these stressors on your body as being like a bucket. And, if your bucket's not that full, yeah, you can probably handle it once in a while. And those cells will build up again. So maybe it gets knocked down a little bit, gets built up again. But if your bucket is full, and then you add, that on top of it, well, then it's going to be a problem. So for me, I had it really stressful. There's a huge stress component to pretty much, I'm starting to think every chronic condition has a stress component. I had a very stressful year, kind of a stressful way of thinking about myself my whole life. And so my bucket was pretty full. And so then, yeah. But, interestingly, I was in Reunion Island off the coast of Africa, which belongs to France, in the fall. And they're not like into gluten-free stuff over there. And so everyone else was having the baguettes every day and the patisserie, all this stuff. And I'm like, that's it, I'm having it. And I did not have a problem with gluten over there. So I think there's also the issue of the way it's grown, the way the wheat is grown in the US and also in Canada, the stuff they spray on it, the glyphosate. So it could be a bit of chemical stuff that's going on. Glyphosate also opens up those tight junctions, also kills bacteria. Like we have good bacteria in our gut, right? Glyphosate kills it. And
is
so
that a pesticide?
Yeah, it's a pesticide.
That's a pesticide used on the wheat.
Yeah, it's a watered down version of Agent Orange. From the Korean from the Vietnam War, when they were just like wanted to wipe out the jungle. And then after the war, is like, yeah, what else can we use this for? This is great for crops because it kills everything. So then they actually make seeds.
Just dilute it a bit. We'll just dilute it a little bit.
Right. Dilute it a little. Yeah. They make seeds. So it's the main component in Roundup, which is a commonly, a lot of people know that. They may even have some in their garage.
Yeah. They banned it here in the city of Toronto.
Yeah.
You can't get it anymore.
Yeah. The thing is, it's water soluble. So it gets into the water. It's there forever. So thank goodness, it's not banned everywhere though. And the seeds are being genetically modified to be Roundup ready. It's called, they're Roundup ready. So in other words, the seeds of say corn or some of the wheat plants, they won't die when they're sprayed with the glyphosate, but everything else will around them. So we're getting that genetically modified, crops as well. So there's a problem with our food system in that it is inflammatory for a lot of people. But I would say for anyone that has inflammation, cutting out gluten is a great place to start. Now, inflammation, some people might be thinking, I don't have inflammation, but I get chronic headaches. That is inflammation, right? There's so many signs of inflammation, not like being forgetful. It's so normalized, right? This, having a senior's moment, that's normalized, but it's not normal. So there's inflammation shows up in many, many ways.
So that's why last night I couldn't remember the name of that actor because too much gluten in my brain.
Could be. It could be.
I'm having some pain right now, actually.
Oh goodness.
I have some new pain. For the last, I would say, it's been pretty much since December. I think Duff knows this, and people close to me know this. I've had this I've torn my abs. I thought it was a hernia because I've had a hernia on the other side. I give away way too much personal information in this podcast. It's embarrassing sometimes, but no, what they've concluded, or what my doctor concluded, and I've been doing physio for it, is that I've actually have like a tear in my abdominal muscle. And I'm wondering, all I've done is physio and stretches. I haven't changed my diet. I haven't done really anything else but the physio and the exercise because I'm quite active, but I haven't been. I've been sedentary for the last couple of months while I'm trying to heal this. And so maybe I should try not eating so much spaghetti and cereal.
Really? You know what? It's worth it. I always say, try it for a week, like for 1 week.
Yeah.
And because you'll notice right away, if you don't have a change in that pain in a week, then it's probably not anything to do with gluten. But it can't just be like partially. You need to cut like 100%.
Oh God, it sounds hard.
So,
Just don't know how it-
wait, on that note, one of your, you have a course on your site, I guess one of your coaching courses, it's a 5-day program called Break Up with Sugar. So give us one piece of insight. First of all, what takes 5 days to get through on that? But also, how do we stop? How do those of us who love sugar stop?
Well, I could have said break up with gluten. I could have said break up with, really anything, because a lot of it is a mindset. Well, first of all, some of the things I teach in that are start reading ingredient labels. Once you start reading ingredient labels, you will be appalled at what's in food. So I chose in that course to pick on sugar just because it is very inflammatory. And to me, that sort of is a lifetime basically thing. But it's also a mindset. So lots of times, one of the things I encourage is planning meals, because if you plan meals, you make better decisions than if you last minute, what am I going to have? And you pull something out of the freezer. So that's another great thing. So reading ingredient labels, whether it's sugar, whether it's gluten, wheat, or whatever, reading ingredient labels is a huge thing. Planning meals is a huge thing. The other thing I teach, well, sugar is particularly craving because it sets up. We're wired to understand, in our biology, that sweetness means safety because it means survival, right? But the problem is, when we were like hunters and gatherers, we didn't get so much sugar the way we do now. So it's more addictive than crack cocaine. So understanding that it's an addiction, and gluten probably to some degree as well, just the way it's used in foods and the way foods are made salty and just the right amount of salty and crunch and sugar and all those things. The other thing I teach is that food scientists and psychologists are creating this food-like products, let's call it that, food-like products to make them addictive, right?
Totally. They've got the dials like salt, sugar, fat. I know there was that book that came out a while back called Salt, Sugar, Fat, about how the food scientists are really just tweaking those three knobs to try to make the food as delicious as possible. Yeah.
And make you want, and then the right color, right? There's so many things. So sometimes I find that when people think they're duping me, that can kind of help them be motivated to make different choices. So yeah, sort of starting with awareness, really, and then I teach some tools for getting through over food cravings. So we're so used to just you think, or you see an ad on TV if you watch TV, or you just think about a food or whatever, you think, I'm going to go have some now. And, these cravings, they only last about 90 seconds, right? 90 seconds, 3 minutes, something like that. Just distract yourself for that amount of time and then just go drink some water. I got this acronym that I use, HALT, right? HALT. If you feel like you want to have something to eat, first ask yourself, am I hungry? Are you really hungry? Maybe you're just thirsty. So get something to drink.
Right.
The A is, am I angry? And so that could be angry or, frustrated or whatever. Sometimes people eat for that reason. So then do something physical that matches that intensity. I remember one time I was so mad, something happened at work, and I said, I was so mad, I went home, washed the floor. That kind of do something that matches the intensity. And then the L is lonely or bored, right? So if some people just eat out of boredom, right? So then do something, find something interesting to do and do that. And then the T is tired or could also be thirsty, but I kind of covered the water thing earlier. So am I tired? Then just go to bed, or if I'm thirsty, drink some water.
I've never really thought about that before, that there could be 5 different things that are masquerading as hunger.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a craving for a snack, I just go get one. I've never actually analyzed whether I was actually hungry.
I've thought about the boredom one a lot. I know that I mean, all the time I will eat when I'm bored. I think I probably became aware of that when I was in my 20s. I remember even talking about it with some of my old roommates in my 20s. I'm eating right now because I'm bored, or procrastinating from studying was another.
Right.
I'm just going to eat this bag of chips instead of study.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's
interesting.
interesting. And, I know you're into this stuff, the whole observer mind and meditation. So when you can kind of step a little bit back and say, what's going on here? I noticed I got a craving. Like that's being the observer. That's kind
Mhm.
of your power place, right? When you say, okay, I'm having a craving. What's really happening? And you can make a different choice.
All right. So on the sort of shifting gears a little bit towards that, when you made a huge choice when you ditched whatever your engineering career was. Sorry, I don't know what that is, but 30 years and went all in on trying to help people, do what you had done yourself with regard to your pain. What for the listener who's 30 years into a career who has a little itch about something else they might want to do? What is it? Do you remember sort of how that all played out, where you went from not only I've discovered this thing to, oh my God, I've discovered a new purpose, to how am I going to walk away from all this sunk cost of a career? Like, how did you get the impetus to say, all right, this is what I'm doing, I'm out, and go to do this other stuff? What did that feel like?
Can I do a little woo?
Sure.
Okay. So when I was at a rock bottom moment, like even before I had done the gluten, dairy, and sugar, I was just at my worst and wondering what's happened to my life. Like, how did this happen? 3 months ago, I was strong and healthy, and now look at me, I can hardly walk. The future doesn't look good. So I was at like really a rock bottom moment. And I remember having this thought that, I wasn't suicidal, but I did have a thought, like, if this is the way my life is going to be, I'm ready to be done. Like, there's like, what's the point, kind of thing. And then the next moment, I had another thought or a voice or knowing that said, you're going to figure this out and you're going to teach other people how to do it.
Wow.
So I kind of had this, like this inner, I was still in pain and I didn't know what I was going to do then, but so I kind of had this knowing that I was going to figure it out. I didn't know how I was going to teach. I didn't know how I was going to teach people. I was still working as an engineer then, and I'd start to tell people about, try cutting out gluten for a week. And anyway, I used to say it didn't really go over that well at parties or at work. But I tried to teach people. But as I was kind
don't
of
eat those cookies. Don't eat that ice cream.
Yeah.
People love
for my birthday.
Here comes Jane again, telling us not to eat any of the good stuff. Hi, Jane.
Spoiling the fun. See, I was spoiling the fun. Even for my own birthday, usually someone would bring in a cake or whatever. I was like, I'll make my own cake. I'll bring in my own cake so that I could have it. But okay, so along my path, I was realizing, talking about relationships and stressors in my life, I was realizing that this work, I knew it wasn't my soul's calling. Like, I liked it. I was good at it. I was teaching engineering at a college at the time, actually.
Okay.
And I loved the teaching, but I realized it wasn't my soul's calling. I really had this new purpose now that I knew about. I also knew that I wasn't completely out of pain at that point. So I thought, I'm going to take a leave. So I took a leave from my job first. And in that time working on my health, and I really realized I need to let that go. And for years, part of my stress was that for years, I felt like I couldn't leave that job. If, in Newfoundland, we call it, you got a good government job, right? You got a good government job. You got a pension and all that. Like, why? You can't leave. And it was a great job. I felt, very lucky to have it. But in the end, I knew that life is too short, right? Life is too short. And I had to do what? And I was lucky to be in a position that I could choose to walk away from it.
Sure. But what's interesting is, so I have a slightly parallel thing, which is all the books before Tickled were business books. I was a business writer. Tickled is not that. And there was a moment where I was about to write a different book where suddenly I was like, wait, I don't have to do that. And it was the first time ever where I had suddenly examined an unexamined assumption about my career, right? Where once you're in, you're in. And I think a lot of us in all sorts of, it happens in relationships, it happens all over the place, where suddenly you realize that you actually do have a choice.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want within limits, right? And reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating because the same for me too. I had it happened during quarantine. We were sitting here at home and suddenly I was like, wait a second, I could do whatever I want. And the fact that that doesn't occur to us says something about our culture or something.
True.
I don't know.
I had a friend and I was really kind of struggling with all this. And I remember she said, if you could do anything you want, like, what if you never went back to that job? If you could do anything you want, what would you do? And I was like, this is so freeing. It really is so freeing. If you could do anything you want, what would you do? And the truth is, we can do anything we want.
Mm-hmm.
We really can. And when you start getting into the whole quantum physics thing, you're creating all your reality anyway. So create what you want.
Right. So what about so diet makes a lot of sense. Tell us, just sort of circling back here, mind and pain.
Yeah.
Right? So I went into the doctor in the fall and I had some lower back pain. They had sent me to an x-ray and they said, wow, dude, you're the cartilage or whatever it is between two of your vertebrae is so thin. You should be in more pain than you are in. And so it's there sort of on and off most days, not debilitating yet. And I'm finding I'm wrestling with trying to tell myself that it's pain in the body, that I don't have to experience the pain in the mind. And I'm trying to pull the two apart and say the body's dealing with it's like. Do you talk about, is that stuff you get into too?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up anyway and wanted to circle back to what Matt was saying with his pain. So pain is actually, the sensation of pain is actually created in the brain, right? Sort of it happens in the body, goes back. So sometimes when pain becomes chronic, it is actually pain that the brain has learned. So we know that our brains are neuroplastic, right? Which means they can keep learning. Very, very good at learning things. Also good at learning pain pathways when they keep getting repeated. So you can use principles of neuroscience to help lower pain as well. So how do we do that? Well, one thing we do is sort of break the pain fear cycle. So when we have pain, often it creates fear because we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is this going to, like you were just saying, it might get worse?
Is it going to last forever? Right.
Yeah. And that's where I was too for a long time, especially, rheumatoid arthritis. Read anything about that and it's not very happy. So we can get a pain fear cycle going on. And that especially reinforces those neural pathways in the brain. So the other side of that is to be objective about it. So talking about that observer again. So to be objective about it, you notice the pain, like we don't deny it, but we notice, that's interesting. Again, so trying to be the observer, it's like, oh, there's pain there. How would I describe it? It's like this or that. So you observe it from a neutral perspective. So that kind of stops that. It helps to stop the pain fear cycle. So it's just like observing, like a body scan. I don't know if you've ever done any of these guided meditations, like a body scan where you're just very objective and just kind of moving through, noticing, but without judgment. So that's one thing. Then another thing you can do is, I love this one, is to imagine that the area that's experiencing pain is like a small child or a pet that's been hurt. Like if you think, I know you got a daughter.
That's what my wife Joey says. She tells the pain she loves it. She tells the body part she loves it. Yeah.
So this, I mean, if we know that the body is self-healing when the environment is right. So if it's not healing, it could be because, I mean, if we think about the energy thing again, that everything's energy, including us, and it's energy not flowing. So your energy goes where your attention, or how does it go? Energy flows where your attention goes. That expression. So you give it your attention, but a loving attention. So not a fearful attention, but a loving attention, like you would, like if your daughter when she was really little, if she came to you with some pain, right? You know, how would you, that feeling of total compassion and not judging it for, you know, why are you there? You know, just feeling a lot of love towards it. I like to imagine like breathing through it. So imagine that you're pulling, like, I don't just say it was your elbow, right? So you're pulling the breath through the arm, lingering at the elbow, loving kind of way, and maybe pulling it into your heart and filling it with love and then going out again. I love this imagery and just generating feelings of love. I mean, we know that feelings of love create a vibration, can be measured outside of the body, and that's a very healing vibration. So there's that. There's also kind of noticing where you've got stress in your life or stressful thoughts, or even breathing, like breath work. A lot of people tend to be shallow breathers or breathing in their chest. That keeps us in the stress response of the nervous system, the sympathetic state. Your body can't heal in that state. Just can't. So anything you can do to calm down, you know, or breathing into the belly, slowing down the breath, feeling relaxed, loving thoughts, any of those kinds of things that get you into the rest and repair state, right? The parasympathetic state, your body can repair, but it can't repair in the other state. So those are some tools that I use. It's not like well, sometimes it can be a quick fix. Like I do that breath work, that imaginary kind of breath work with people, and they'll go like, my pain is gone. I mean, it's amazing. Or, you know, sometimes maybe I like the idea of rating it beforehand. So, okay, it's about, you know, 6 out of 10 now. You do something like that. And even if it only goes down to a 5, you got it down that much just with focused, loving attention.
It's interesting. I think people really, they think of pain as just this objective scientific thing, right? I mean, Duff knows I'm pretty pragmatic, materialistic kind of thinker. And it's just interesting to I mean, it's, you just know intuitively that you can shut out pain. You can ignore it as well, right? Or you can, but I've never thought about, oh, abs and groin, I love you so much. I hope you feel better.
Well, think of anesthesia. They talk about that, right? It's like when they put you under, imagine if you were actually feeling the pain of someone cutting into you. If you were sleeping, you would wake up. Yeah. You would be like, who is cutting my stomach open with a scalpel? But they've severed the connection.
They blocked the pathway.
Yeah. Really super interesting stories I heard someone talking about on another podcast. These aren't my direct experience, but one person was on a construction site and he was whatever, he was all alone, severed off 2 of his fingers, never felt any pain. He got the fingers, he got himself out. Like, I think he had to go on snowmobile or something like that, like a long way to get to help. All that time, he never experienced any pain until he got to finally had support people that could help him. The brain knew, like, we can't experience pain right now, right? Because this is
shock too, right? Like shock is that experience where the body sort of shuts down, part of the mental function so that you don't freak out too much when you look and you see that your fingers have been taken off.
For survival.
Right?
For survival.
Because you can't process it. You're something deep within you. It's not even like your like, it's like a deep layer of consciousness or something that that knows to shut everything down. It's not like you go, oh, I can't deal with this right now. I better hold off until I get to the hospital.
Matt, you've given me, Matt, the cue for the thing I want to tell Jane about.
Can I share another story first that goes with the one I just said?
Yes, please.
Okay, it'll be quick. So then there's another guy who's at a construction site, falls, lands on a nail, goes through his boot, and he's screaming in pain. When he looks down, he sees the nail through his boot. They get the ambulance. They get him to the hospital, injecting him with morphine or whatever.
It's between the toes.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
that's
my
wild.
God.
Again, it's the brain interpreting the environment. So our brain has everything to do with pain.
Mm-hmm.
So we can use it as a tool.
Interesting.
So apropos of your first story, and Matt, to what you were saying about a deeper layer of consciousness, I was reading this book the other day where the guy brought up a very interesting concept. He said, "Be in the water, but don't get wet." So if you think about it, when you go swimming, right? Of course, you're wet. But if you think about it with a little more focus, it's like there's a part of you that doesn't actually get wet when you're in the water. It's like the control room of you isn't swimming as well. It's still dry, running the show from wherever it is, and the body's wet. And I think there's something in the pain realm there too, right? It's like you can be in the body, but not be the body, right? You can, right? Because we're obviously driving these things, but we are not these things. We're something else. We're something much more subtle. And I was like, oh, be in the water, but don't get wet.
Sounds very zen
and
like.
It works for all sorts of situations, right? Not just pain, right? Anything that requires that you sort of try to maintain some focus, right? Yeah. And if you can pull back, like you said, to the witness layer, the witness doesn't get wet. The body gets wet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so you're in Newfoundland, Jane, but you do Zoom coaching, right?
It's all on Zoom. Yeah.
It's all on Zoom. So anyone listening who's got chronic pain, you might want to check out her site. She's thewellnessengineer.com. And if you need any endorsement, go check the kind words section on her site, and you will see the kinds of things that people say about working with Jane. It almost makes me wish my back pain was worse. And then I'd be getting coaching. I'm going to try and run this one down myself. But where else? So they can get you on your website, and are you on all the socials?
Yes. Socials at Jane Hogan Health or the Wellness Engineer, either one of those. You can find me YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I started doing TikTok. And I've got a podcast, Wellness by Design. You've been a guest, Stuff. And so I love to do that. I love interviewing people, and I'm on different summits and so on. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
And are you doing another one like the Becoming Pain Free thing? That seemed like it's successful enough to do so.
It was. I loved it. I'm not doing a big one like that this year. I'm focusing this year. I'm writing a book. And I'm also focusing on doing a smaller one and running some other programs and events. But I've always got different things going on if people want to sign up. I got a free audio bundle they can download. And then they're on my mailing list, and I share what I've got coming up there. So I'm hoping 2024, another big summit.
Sweet. All right. Well, look, thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for sharing this sort of discovery of the tickle, because to me, that's at least as interesting as what you do. It's how you found what you do. And it's encouraging to hear that we can summon the courage to go do a new thing and sort of conquer that fear. And then go back to what we were just saying before. It's all fear. Everything's fear, right? Everything's fear and anxiety.
That's why I do the cold water dipping. Overcoming that little bit of fear helps me do other things that are bigger. So start small. Baby steps will take you anywhere as long as you keep taking them.
Nice.
Thank you, Jane.
Like
Thanks for joining us. Pleasure to
Thanks
have
so
you.
much
Jane.
for having me.
Cheers. That's Jane Hogan. She's cool. She was part of a book club that read Tickled, that's run by our friend Hannah Crum. So,
okay. That's how you ended up meeting her.
just a love
Essentially,
fest all around. Yeah.
Cool.
I saw that course, Breaking Up with Sugar. I want to take it. Although I don't do much of the cooking here. Joey does most of the cooking. So my quitting gluten is more in her hands than mine.
Well, and the thing is, it's so complicated. I run our kitchen in our household and do all the grocery shopping and everything. And it's like, I mean, first of all, I love food. I love all the stuff that has sugar and all the bad stuff in it, and fat, and salt, and everything. I counteract it more usually with activity. I'm like, okay, I can eat and drink and, do some beef, have some excess. I eat reasonably healthy. I try, it's not like I go completely crazy. I try to make some healthy stuff and some healthy options. We always have salads and lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, but also, I love throwing like a steak on the barbecue with like a whole bunch of fat, or, I like also rich foods, and I like all the good stuff. I couldn't knock out, like, put it this way, knock wood. I'll actually knock wood here. I couldn't cut out dairy, sugar, and gluten out of my diet without
you would
ceasing
starve.
enjoying life.
You would die.
I would die. You know what? I'd just be like, why am I living here? Unless I had some reason to, like if there was some, health reason where it's like my doctor's orders were cut this stuff out. It's not going to happen for me.
All right. Well, I've got a couple for you that are food related. It just seems appropriate here.
Awesome.
I think we were watching a show the other day. Vinegar.
Acetic acid, also known as acetic
Vinegar
acid.
means, so in the fermentation spectrum, right? Like kombucha, if you let kombucha go, it turns into vinegar, right?
Yeah. Or wine.
Right. So vinegar is it's sour wine.
Agar. I don't know the word for sour.
Agar is acer from Latin, which means sour. So in Old French, it's vin aigre. So it's sour wine.
Let's put this vin aigre on a salad and see how it tastes.
Right? We can't drink it anymore. Let's put it on the salad.
Cool.
Okay. So another one was companion.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, so I think calm is Latin for with or together.
Okay, yeah, and con in Spanish, that makes sense. Calm, yeah.
Right? And pain is bread.
Okay, there's bread in companion.
One who breaks bread with another. Your companion.
Is this legit? Did you look this up,
totally
or did you
legit.
just? Okay,
I did.
A companion.
It's
a
someone
compagnon.
It's the guy you break bread with. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. I love that one. That's a really good one. We're now companions. We've broken bread together.
Right.
Sweet.
But not if you're on Jane Hogan's gluten-free diet. At least you'd have to have some kind of gluten-free pan. All right. So look, I think Joey has thought a lot about the idea of pain, and whether pain is who you are or pain is not who you are. I think we should check in with the Sage of Sages and see what she has to say about this topic. So here we are, back with the Sage of Sages, Joelle Moss, otherwise known as Agent Angel. It's also apparently the name of her headphones. Joey, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm happy to be here.
So you've been eavesdropping on this conversation, from what I'm told, and
I have
had some thoughts about pain and the mind that you might share with us, or that I hoped you would share with us.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. Like, I can't remember where I first heard or was introduced to the idea that pain's sort of illusory, and that if you actually try to pinpoint it, you won't be able to. And so I started trying to do that a long time ago. I did it for the first time with a heartbreak. I was like kind of brokenhearted. And when I actually sort of tried to get at the root of it, there wasn't an actual, like, it was very fleeting. The pain would be, it was my thoughts that sort of kept it ongoing. And so once I kind of learned to do that, it's like sort of just to investigate it, and rather than try to push it away, just feel it and let it happen. And the minute I did there, my heartbreak would last like 3 seconds, and it didn't kick in again until my thoughts started running about, oh, this is so bad. And so that was like my first sort of experience with it. And then I tried that same thing on physical pain, where you try to find like the actual the root of where it's coming from. And it's almost like you sort of chase it around. It's like you can't quite get a handle on it. And actually, Marguerite and I did that kind of practice after she got kicked in the face by the horse. I was like, she was having some pain. I was like, see if you can find it. See if you can like close your eyes and go in and see if you can find it. And she's like, I can't. And it would sort of subside for a minute. And the other...
well, Jane also brought up, just as switching gears here, Jane brought up the loving the body part thing that you talk about a lot. It's, I gotta say, as someone new to the idea, it sometimes even rises to the level of being irritating to hear, right? Just tell the pain that you love it. But explain to us why you think that works and how you use it.
So she talked a little about sort of sending loving energy to a part. And I used to try to do that through a visualization, which for me was a little more difficult. So I'd try to like visualize light or breath going to the area where the pain was. And it was a really bad case of poison ivy that I was determined not to scratch. And instead of being like all angsty about it, because poison ivy can cause a bit of angst, I decided the only way I could not send negative energy to it was to say, I love you. And so I would look at the poison ivy and I would say, I love you. And it would immediately stop itching. And I was like, this is kind of amazing. And so I used that I love you technique on my poison ivy. I didn't scratch it and it went away really, really quickly. And I tried that afterwards with any part of my body. If it starts hurting, I just kind of try to localize it, not pinpoint it, but just localize it. And I tell it I love it and it stops hurting. It can come back, but it stops. And it just like, it's kind of crazy. I'm not the only one. I've had friends try it too. You have to choose your friends.
Jane Hogan does it apparently with great success with her coaching clients.
Yeah, no, it's for me it works. And I had an experience in meditation the other day. We were sitting there and like I think my leg had gone to sleep and it was like pins and needles and kind of hurting. And you're in meditation, so you've already sort of got this witness state that she mentioned going on. And I had the thought, I'm not the body. And the minute I had the thought, my leg was not hurting anymore. It was gone. When I stood up and got up later after meditation, I was still asleep, but it didn't hurt for the rest of the time we were meditating. So
sounds a little like magic to me.
Oh, life is magic, right?
So would I be wrong if it just seems a little suspicious that maybe one of your techniques is to drink your pain away? You look like you're in front of a kegerator.
I am at the kombucha headquarters. This is where the magic happens, bringing it back to that.
Anyone looking at us on YouTube here, that's Rockledge Rasa in there, two taps, 5 gallons each. Can you move to one side real quick, Joey? So the see those kegs behind her listeners or viewers too? Those are kombucha in action. In any case, any other thoughts on pain and whether it's real or not?
Well, I mean, what's real? You have to, you got to dial it back a bit, right? No, only that I think I would like to hire Jane.
Same here. Get in line.
Yeah. No, she was great.
Thank you, Sage
Wonderful.
of Sages. We will be back with you. I think, actually, you are guest hosting on the next episode of this program. So, listeners and viewers, you're going to get a real dose of the Sage of Sages. So, you'll see her soon enough. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you, Duff.
All right. There you have it. Okay, to close out, I'm going to pull my own Oriabindo. I'm not going to do Oriabindo, but I'm going to talk about something that Jane was talking there. I didn't want to go all the way into this because we wanted to hear what she had to say, not me, but it's a similar point. So the idea of bondage, I think we've talked about this before. So bondage to an idea, right? So let's say a wrong idea. So let's say you come to you're totally mistaken about some friend of yours who's done you wrong, and you've got a hate on for them for a while, and then you find out that isn't what happened at all, and that thing goes away in your mind. But while you were mistaken, right? You were in bondage to that idea. You were imprisoned by the idea until you knew the truth, and then you were released, right? And it's an idea that you did to yourself. Okay, so to zoom all the way out, the bondage of the human condition is the following: you think you are happening, that you are separate, that you are doing things and things are happening to you. You think you are happening, right? When actually there's nothing separate about you from everything around you, right? So you are part of everything. You're not separate, right? So the bondage of the mind of it in most of us is that we think we're separate. And when you get released from that, that is the release of the biggest burden of all, because you realize that you're part of this whole thing. But hold on, we don't need to dwell on that for too much. So let's think about pain, right? Okay. So let's think about a breakup. When you break up with someone, you experience a kind of pain that's not physical, right? That, the world is ending. Remember those breakups? Nothing was ever good.
Heartbreak. Heartache.
So nothing was going to be good again until you were released from that bondage. That idea went away. And suddenly you met someone new, and the world was great, and it wasn't ending. And the heartbreak was really just a mistaken idea that you were walking around with, right? You were trying to adjust, and you couldn't see straight. So think about physical pain. And this is what Jane was saying. Something is happening for sure, right? There's a torn muscle. But a large part of what's going on is in your mind. And now there's certain kinds of pain where I don't want to say none of it, you're not feeling it, like people who have sort of lifelong serious conditions. But for a lot of us, if you're walking around with a certain kind of chronic pain, it's the same kind of thing. You can release yourself from the bondage that's part of that pain, and it will go away. I am absolutely certain of that. And because there's so much of what brings us pain is in the mind. It's in the mind. And Joey just said something similar.
What about couples that are into bondage? Doesn't that involve a little bit of pain?
That's the kind you'll want. That's pleasurable pain. It's a whole different category and a whole different episode of the podcast. So tune in for our bondage podcast coming soon. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in a week.
Bye-bye.
At the present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion right here, right now. Right here, right now. Whoa, right here, right now.
You've been listening to How to Tickle Yourself with your hosts Duff McDonald and Matt McButter. You can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. You can talk to us and see what else is happening on Instagram and Facebook at How to Tickle Yourself. This program was recorded in Studio B of the historic Rockledge Recording Studio and the Tunnel Under Arundel. Right Here, Right Now, our original 16-part theme music was written and recorded by the legendary Paul Reddick and Kyle Ferguson of the Sidemen, with the brilliant Steve Mariner on bass and drums and in the mixing room. The podcast is produced and distributed by Storic Media. Our editor is Andrew Steiner. Our coordinator is Samantha Abramovitz. Our producers are Kristen Verbitsky and Chuck LaBella. For more information, visit storicmedia.com. That's STORIC media.com.
My love, my dear.